This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans. It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Welcome to our recurring feature Superstar Showcase, where we take a look at wrestling legends from a particular promotion or a type of wrestler, such as a high flyer. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at Mid-South Wrestling All-Stars 1979 to 1983. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Here are the criteria. This time around, we're looking at 8 wrestlers who worked in Mid-South Wrestling from 1979 to 1983. We're focusing on singles careers, and due to time constraints, we can't include everyone, although we'll keep the tape machines running and revisit this topic. The Junkyard Dog. While Mid-South Wrestling had many heroes and villains, no one could compare to the Junkyard Dog, Sylvester Ritter, and his role as the promotion's megastar. Promoter Bill Watts chose wisely when he brought Ritter into Mid-South and pushed him hard, keeping his matches short to hide his in-ring weaknesses, which were many, and to capitalize on his copious charisma. As noted in our video, Junkyard Dog blinded the feud that rocked Mid-South Wrestling, the angle where Michael Hayes kayfabe blinded the Junkyard Dog, and the Dogs valiantly gained revenge in a steel cage dog collar match elevated the Dog, Hayes, and the rest of the fabulous Freebirds into top stars. For Bill Watts, booking the Junkyard Dog required precision. As told in the book Sex, Lies, and Headlocks, Watts shared how, "I knew a black would draw blacks, but the real secret was not letting a white man save a black. I put JYD in situations that were impossible, and he always saved himself. And guess what? The whites loved him for it. Everyone loved him for it. He was a black man who was his own man." The booking paid off as the Junkyard Dog became more than a wrestling hero. He became the man in New Orleans, Louisiana. When the New Orleans school system held a poll during the 1981 to 1982 school year, polling its students which sports star they'd like to meet, the kids chose the Junkyard Dog over the city's established pro sports franchises. Indeed, as Greg Klein writes, "The reality is, from 1980 to 1984, the Junkyard Dog was the biggest star in New Orleans." Much like Vince McMahon would do with Hulk Hogan in the WWF, Bill Watts perfected a formula that channeled the JYD's off-the-charts charisma into a phenomenon. The Dog would enter the arena, his theme song Queen's Another One Bites the Dust playing as the fans chanted, "Who dat? Who dat? Who dat say they gonna beat that dog?" The Dog's run in Mid-South featured singles and tag matches, including runs with the Mid-South Tag Team Championship alongside Dick Murdoch, Killer Carl Cox, Buck Robley, Terry Orndorff, and Mr. Olympia, and every singles title that could be won in the promotion. The Dog and his different tag team partners locked horns with teams such as the Wild Samoans, Paul Orndorff and Bob Orton Jr., the Fabulous Freebirds, John Studd and the Destroyer, and many others. JYD's singles opponents were just as varied, with the Dog taking a bite out of former friend Ted DiBiase, and heels including Killer Khan, the Great Kabuki, the One Man Gang, Butch Reed, and Nikolai Volkov. Interestingly, when the Dog lost a Loser Leaves Town match, his masked friend Stagger Lee, who some noted bore a passing resemblance to the Dog, took over the JYD schedule until the suspension ended. JYD's incredible popularity meant he likely could have stayed in Mid-South as long as he wanted, but when the WWF invited him in 1984, the Dog walked out on the promotion, leaving promoter Bill Watts high and dry. Ernie the Cat Ladd. Standing 6'9" and billed as over 300 pounds, former NFL star Ernie Ladd gravitated toward pro wrestling with its big money during the NFL offseason before becoming a full-time wrestler. Ladd worked in an era when racial discrimination was still prevalent in some areas, but that didn't stop him from doing things his way, whether it was playing a heel, still a dangerous choice for wrestlers, let alone black wrestlers, or engaging in some of the most blatant gimmick infringement ever seen. In their book, The Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, The Heels, Greg Oliver and Steven Johnson write about Ladd. He swiped Terry Funk's egg-sucking dog line, picked up a crown like Bobby Shane and Jerry Lawler would wear, and emblazoned his ring jacket with "Promises, Promises" after seeing football star Joe Namath with similar appeal. "I was a great thief," Ladd said with a chuckle, "plus I had the gift of gab." Ladd was a natural as a heel, and his promo skills alone could talk fans into buying a ticket as he insulted babyfaces during interviews. As Mark Morthier writes in his profile of Ernie Ladd, remembering Ernie Big Cat Ladd, Ladd called Andre the Dummy. Not known for being politically correct, Ladd often referred to rival Wahoo McDaniel, who also played AFL football, as the Drunken Indian. These insults did not endear Ladd to many fans, but it was all part of his persona. The Big Cat was never known for his Greco-Roman skills, instead relying on brawling and his signature taped thumb, convenient for jamming into an opponent's throat. Ladd shined in various territories, including Tri-State Wrestling, the promotion Mid-South broke off from in 1979. In Mid-South, Ladd wrestled and managed, helping out heel team the Samoans. He also worked behind the scenes, providing assistance with Mid-South's booking. As noted in our video on the angle where the Freebirds blinded the Junkyard Dog, Ladd recognized the importance of a top black babyface, which helped Tri-State Wrestling, and later, Mid-South Wrestling, enjoy tremendous success. Ladd collected championships in Mid-South, whether it was beating Iron Mike Sharp for the Mid-South Louisiana Championship, or teaming with Bad Leroy Brown to capture the Mid-South Tag Team titles from Terry Orndorff and the Junkyard Dog. Ladd was a frequent opponent for the Junkyard Dog, battling JYD and various partners such as Cowboy Bill Watts, Killer Carl Cox, and Dick Murdoch for the tag titles. Ladd later turned babyface, teaming with former rivals such as the Junkyard Dog. Ernie also battled monster heels such as John Studd, Killer Khan, and the One Man Gang. Paul Orndorff. Paul Orndorff was a tough guy with a real sports background, the two essentials Bill Watts loved to see with his wrestlers. Orndorff initially worked as a babyface, providing some power against the many tough guys looking to terrorize the scene. A subsequent heel turn changed things up, with Orndorff then battling babyfaces. The turn reflected Orndorff's portrayal as a hothead, a theme revisited many times in other promotions. On this occasion, Paul was scheduled to challenge North American Heavyweight Champion the Grappler for the title, but Orndorff failed to show up. With Orndorff out of the picture, Jake Roberts stepped in, defeating the Grappler for the area's top prize. Orndorff was incensed, claiming he'd overslept. Roberts lost no sleep over Orndorff's misfortune, leading to Orndorff turning heel and challenging Jake for the title, a title he won at the July 4th, 1981 Mid-South Superdome Extravaganza. Orndorff held the title for nearly 4 months, fighting off challenges from Ted DiBiase, the Junkyard Dog, Dick Murdoch, and even Dusty Rhodes before dropping it to Ted DiBiase. While Orndorff's Mid-South colleague Bob Roop believes Orndorff played a better babyface, the main man himself claims otherwise. "I like being a heel. It came naturally to me, and that's when I started making my money. Rough and aggressive, aggressive. Same thing when I played football. One thing I loved to do was block." Orndorff eventually turned babyface, this time after missing a title match due to a different excuse, car trouble. However, in this case, Orndorff's problems weren't his fault, as Paul's alleged friend Bob Roop sabotaged Orndorff's car, causing him to miss his title match. Roop swooped in, defeating Ted DiBiase. Orndorff turned babyface, targeting Roop in an unsuccessful bid for the title. According to Cowboy Bill Watts, Orndorff was difficult to deal with behind the scenes. "I hired Paul in 1980. He was never happy with his money, or, it seemed, with anything. I even changed my method of doing payoffs because of him. I used to do weekly payoffs when we were taping local promos, which were all done at the Shreveport TV studios. I quit handing the checks out until after the interviews, because Orndorff would see his check and be so mad it would spoil his whole afternoon of interviews. Every week after he got his check, he'd be on the phone trying to get booked somewhere else." Despite these problems, Watts praised Paul's work ethic. The thing about Orndorff was that no matter how mad he was at Bill Watts, when he went into that ring, he gave 100%. I still talk to him now and then. We had our philosophical disagreements, but we established mutual respect. Orndorff led Mid-South in 1982, jumping to Georgia Championship Wrestling and working other territories until he joined the WWF in 1983. Ted DiBiase. Second-generation wrestler Ted DiBiase, the adopted son of Iron Mike DiBiase, was heavily involved in Mid-South Wrestling and Tri-State Wrestling. The The future $1 Million Man was involved in several pivotal programs in Mid-South, which dealt with the North American Heavyweight Championship. This title would also lead to a dramatic heel turn for DiBiase, as he joined the seemingly never-ending list of babyfaces who turned on the Junkyard Dog. Bill Watts used his knack for detailed storylines to set things up perfectly. Babyface wrestler Ted DiBiase, who had recently begun wearing a protective black glove following a hand injury, challenged the Dog to a title match, pointing out he'd been chasing Bob Roop for the title before the Dog beat Roop. JYD gladly accepted, and the bout was booked. The match was a back-and-forth affair until the Dog accidentally sent DiBiase over the top rope while Ted had applied a spinning toe hold. The referee could have disqualified JYD for throwing DiBiase over the top rope, an automatic disqualification, but didn't, ruling it was an accident. The Dog and the referee checked on DiBiase, with JYD rolling Ted back into the ring. As the Dog and the referee returned to the ring, DiBiase loaded his glove with a foreign object, flooring the Dog with a punch. DiBiase covered the KO'd Dog for the win and the title. Mid-South fans were shocked. As Greg Klein explains, the turn was steeped in reality. Outside the ring, DiBiase and JYD were great friends. Another fact most everyone seemed to know. They were neighbors in Baton Rouge, frequent traveling companions, and to the extent JYD trained, workout partners. When DiBiase got married on New Year's Eve 1981, JYD was his best man. When DiBiase turned, it meant unbelievable heat. He hadn't just gone to the dark side for money and titles, he had betrayed his best friend. Ted's evil ways continued when he formed the faction the Rat Pack, with Jim Duggan and Matt Bourne, with the trio running wild on the area as they collected championships and angered fans. DiBiase proved a remarkable heel and was frequently involved in programs with the North American Heavyweight Championship and the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. DiBiase's villainy had no limits as he allied with hated foreign heel manager Skandor Akbar, a move which didn't set well with Rat Pack teammate Jim Duggan. Duggan said he couldn't associate with Akbar and that he and Ted could go their separate ways. DiBiase agreed, that is, until Duggan attacked Akbar, leading to DiBiase taking his former friend out with his loaded glove. Magnum T.A. Business was about to pick up for Terry Allen when he entered Mid-South Wrestling. First, though, he had to earn his stripes. Terry Allen began wrestling as a pro when he was 19. As was custom for most wrestlers of that era, he mastered his craft as he worked from one territory to another. He had a clear goal in mind, though. I wanted to be the best wrestling tactician class brawler who was in shape that anybody had ever seen. That was my goal. I had a personal goal to every night make believers out of everybody in the building. Allen's path to becoming Magnum T.A. began when he played chauffeur for Andre the Giant during Andre's tour in the NWA Pacific Northwest Territory, one of many promotions Allen worked in. Allen ran into the 8th winner of the world 2 years later when Terry was working in championship wrestling from Florida. Allen would tell the flagship, "While in Florida, Andre says to me, 'You're ready, boss, to do something big, but you need a name. You need a handle.' That's exactly what he called it, a handle. Andre said, 'You look like that guy on TV. You should be Magnum T.A. It sounded great. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and he was going back to Vince Sr. to tell him about me to pitch it and have me come up there and work for them. Fate intervened, and Bill Watts invited Allen to work in Mid-South Wrestling after Paul Orndorff's aforementioned exit. Magnum found a measure of success during a campaign in championship wrestling, but nothing like what he experienced in Mid-South. There, Magnum was quickly pushed, with Allen noting that he was making 6 figures for the first time in his wrestling career. Interestingly, Allen was reportedly in consideration for a campaign in the WWF, but Mid-South Wrestling's Ernie Ladd got to Magnum first, part of Bill Watts' plan to shake things up in Mid-South. As Bill Watts tells it, Magnum indeed shook things up. Another guy who started to become a difference maker in 1983 was Magnum T.A., Terry Allen. He was a kid who had worked in Florida, in San Antonio, and had been sort of a protege of Dusty Rhodes. Although Magnum started for me in 1983, 1984 was the year his star really took off. We slowly built him up, and then I decided to make him a sort of sex symbol. We bought him motorcycle leathers and changed his whole look. Although this video only covers Mid-South Wrestling through 1983, Magnum accomplished quite a lot in just 1 year. He teamed with Jim Duggan to capture the Mid-South Tag Team Championship from Ted DiBiase and Boris Zukov, who was substituting for Mr. Olympia, and then was positioned into a program where he won the North American Heavyweight Championship from Butch Reed. Sadly, the title change would be nullified due to a technicality. Butch Reed had chosen Magnum as his opponent, thinking Magnum would be a pushover, only to get a wake-up call. Regrettably, the title match hadn't been sanctioned by Mid-South authorities, and it was ruled null and void. Despite the setback, Magnum's career flourished, with veteran wrestler Mr. Wrestling 2 later teaming up with T.A. to capture the Mid-South Tag Team Championship on Christmas Day 1985. Big things lay ahead in 1984, including a wild feud with his mentor Mr. Wrestling 2 and a main event push. Jake Roberts. Prior to his legendary run in the WWF, Jake Roberts seemed to work everywhere, and he left an impression wherever he worked, whether it was as one of Kevin Sullivan's disciples in Championship Wrestling in Florida, as a popular young babyface in Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, or in Mid-South. Jake enjoyed a healthy push in Mid-South, capturing its North American Heavyweight Championship. In 2024, Jake recalled what it was like working in Mid-South. Well, at Mid-South, you had to get your and go with it. You know, you couldn't play around. There was no horse. The matches usually, if you were up on the card and had a spot at all, you do 25 minutes for a match. That was every night, and the matches had to be intense because Bill Watts demanded that. While Jake didn't have an extended run in Mid-South from 1979 to 1983, it would be in Mid-South where he began using the DDT. According to Masked Wrestler The Grappler, the move came about from an in-ring blunder. Jake was waiting and grabbed me in another front face lock. There was just one problem. Our bodies were so slick with perspiration that Jake couldn't get a firm grip on the hold. As we slid around like a couple of lubed-up oil wrestlers, we both tripped and fell to the mat. In one motion, Jake dropped me right on my head. The Grappler recalls how the move not only stunned him, but the crowd. Roberts and the Grappler did the move again, but with control, with Roberts slapping the masked man on the back and driving him toward the mat. The move became an instant hit and would define Roberts' career. As good as the story is, Roberts wasn't the first wrestler to use the DDT. Luchador Black Gordman began using the move in the 1970s. Nonetheless, Jake Roberts popularized the hold, and it became forever associated with him. Jim Duggan. Wrestling fans familiar with Hacksaw Jim Duggan's patriotic babyface character might be horrified to see Duggan's early years in Mid-South Wrestling, where he not only played a heel, but played a hatchet man for Foreign Menace manager Skandor Akbar. Duggan still remembers the odd pairing. The ironic thing was that when I made my Mid-South debut in 1982, it was as a bounty hunter looking to collect the money Akbar had placed on the head of Captain Redneck, Dick Murdoch. But after a week or so, Akbar was never again in my corner, and people forget our brief association. The association would be conveniently ignored when Duggan turned babyface later, but first, Bill Watts had a sustained run as a heel planned for Duggan. Jim's team with Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne as the Rat Pack led to one of wrestling's most controversial matches. Duggan describes the heat the Rat Pack had in Mid-South. Ted DiBiase was on fire at that time, and he and I combined as the Rat Pack. Maybe the most hated team in the area since the Freebirds had set the territory on fire in 1980 with a feud against Mid-South's top hero, the Junkyard Dog. The Rat Pack's feud with the Junkyard Dog led to a no disqualification, loser leaves town match between DiBiase and Jim Duggan and Mid-South Tag Team Champions the Junkyard Dog and Mr. Olympia. Whoever took the fall would have to leave the territory. However, when Duggan was unable to work the match, DiBiase brought in wrestler Matt Bourne. As Kayfabe Memories Scott Teal writes, fans watching the show were intrigued by a gorilla mascot from the State Fair, who was handing out balloons to kids. That is until the State Fair gorilla jumped onto the apron and tore off his mask to reveal Jim Duggan. Duggan speared JYD. DiBiase got his object back and nailed the dog with a once more loaded glove. He got the pin, and the crowd went silent, stunned by the outcome. Duggan continued feuding with Mid-South's heroes before finally seeing the light and battling the villainous outsiders he'd once aligned with after Ted DiBiase betrayed him. From that point on, the burly brawler worked as a babyface, specializing in dealing with foreign heels. The Grappler. Wrestler Lynn Denton caught a break when he was asked to don a mask and work as a grappler in Bill Watts' new promotion, Mid-South Wrestling. Ironically, Lynn was considering retiring, as he'd spent so much time jobbing in Tri-State Wrestling and more recently Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. That was about to change. In his memoir, Denton recalls being approached by Mid-South's Buck Robley and told his services were desired, not interested in more jobbing. Denton was skeptical until Robley told Denton he was set for a push and a championship. However, he'd need to wear a mask. Denton remembers Bill Watts telling him, "I need a wrestling heel. Look, Dog is a great babyface and will bring in the people, but his matches are going to be short. I need someone that can deliver a long, solid match and give the people their money's worth. If things go well, I'll have you working with Teddy." The masked grappler was compared to another masked heel, Dr. X, who used a loaded boot to win matches. Denton would incorporate the gimmick, part of Bill Watts' philosophy that a heel couldn't defeat a babyface in a fair fight. It was a gimmick, there's that word again, where a wrestler supposedly had some illegal weight in the heel of their boot. By kicking the mat and loading the toe of the boot, the wrestler would have the power to knock out any opponent. At least that's what the announcers would tell the television audience. Keeping with his realistic approach to wrestling, Watts told Denton he couldn't just start using the boot with no reason. Consequently, a reason was devised, with babyface Ted DiBiase turning the tables on the grappler after a spot where the grappler tried to use a steel chair on Ted. DiBiase got the chair and began smashing his masked opponent's foot and leg, kayfabe injuring it so badly that the grappler needed a special orthopedic boot to compete. Thus was born the grappler's ace in the hole, which he used to bludgeon many opponents, winning matches and championships in the process. Denton used elements he borrowed from other wrestlers, including his name, his loaded boot, and his catchphrase. They don't call you a great wrestler, they call you the grappler. Beat me if you can. Lynn himself admits he appropriated other wrestlers' gems. I know what some of you are probably thinking. Yes, I got my name from Don Kernodle, my boot from Bill Watts, and my catchphrase from Ox Baker. There's a lesson here for young wrestlers. Always listen to creative people. The grappler became one of Mid-South's most hated heels, and while his name isn't always remembered, he was one of the hottest acts in the territory era. The grappler won the North American Heavyweight Championship, maintaining a chokehold, more like a foothold thanks to his loaded boot, on the title. Arguably, the grappler's biggest moment in Mid-South Wrestling occurred when he and the Super Destroyer, aka Scott Irwin, defeated Dusty Rhodes and Andre the Giant in a semi-final match of a tag team tournament on April 18, 1981 at New Orleans Superdome. This shocking win, which saw the grappler beat Dusty with a loaded boot, led to the two heels winning the vacant Mid-South Tag Team Championship after defeating the Junkyard Dog and Dick Murdoch in the finals. Not bad for a 22-year-old who was ready to throw in the towel before he was given a mask and a push. Sadly, Denton's success went to his head. The grappler had just made $3,000 in 1 week, but was angry when he saw how much more money the Junkyard Dog was making. The grappler gave Bill Watts a choice: give him a raise or he'd walk. Watts told the grappler to walk, and that was that. While Denton would later find success as one half of the Dirty White Boys alongside Tony Anthony, the grappler's career peaked during his first run in Mid-South. Unfortunately, his ignorance about the business sabotaged the rest of his career. Do you remember these Mid-South Wrestling All-Stars? Who are your favorites? Don't worry if we miss some of your favorites, because we'll have another video down the road. Share your thoughts in the comment section and let us know if there are any videos you'd like wrestling's greatest moments to cover. In the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about wrestling's greatest moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.